My parents stole my $27,800 college fund to save my brother from prison. I left with 2 bags. 10 years later, they showed up at my office. I was 20 when they sat me down at the kitchen table after my brother's 3rd DUI. He'd wrapped his car around a telephone pole at 2 a.m. Blood alcohol nearly triple the legal limit. Somehow, he'd walked away without a scratch. The car was totaled and he was looking at real prison time unless they hired the best lawyer in the county. My dad cleared his throat and said they needed $30,000. I asked where they'd get that kind of money. That's when he told me they were using my college fund. The one my grandparents had set up when I was born. The one that had grown to $27,800 over the years. The one I'd been counting on to attend state school with my academic scholarships. My brother sat there with bloodshot eyes, looking at his phone like this conversation didn't concern him. He'd already burned through his own college fund years ago on legal fees and property damage from his first 2 arrests. This was just another Tuesday for him. I told them no, that money was for my education. I'd worked for 5 years saving every penny, maintained perfect grades, earned scholarships. My brother made his choices. I wasn't paying for them. My mom stared at me and said, "How can you be so selfish? Your brother needs help." I asked what about what I needed. My dad waved his hand dismissively and said I'd figure it out. That I always did. That my brother didn't have my advantages. My brother slammed his fist on the table and called me a self-righteous prick. My dad stood up and shoved his finger in my face, telling me the money was in an account with my mom's name on it. They were going to use it whether I liked it or not. The next morning, I went to the bank with my mom and watched her withdraw every single cent. $27,800. 5 years of my hard work on in one transaction. She couldn't even look at me as she signed the papers. When I got home, my brother was in the living room playing video games like nothing had happened. He didn't even look up when he said, "Thanks, bro. I'll pay you back. I promise." I packed everything important into 2 duffel bags. I had $3,800 in my checking account that I'd been saving for textbooks and dorm supplies. It was enough for a one-way Greyhound ticket to San Francisco and maybe a month of survival if I was careful. I left on a Tuesday morning while everyone was out, left my house key on my desk and walked out of that house forever. Didn't leave a note, just disappeared. The first 2 years in San Francisco were brutal. I slept in my car, a $1,000 beater that made dying whale sounds every time I started it. I worked as a dishwasher, dog walker, and delivery driver. Sometimes 3 jobs at once just to afford a room in a house with 6 other people. During my lunch breaks and after work, I'd go to the public library and teach myself to code. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Python, any free resources I could find online. I spent every spare minute learning, building small projects, failing, and starting over. After 8 months, I landed my first real tech job as a support specialist, making $40,000 a year. It felt like winning the lottery. I absorbed everything, worked nights and weekends, teaching myself advanced programming. When the company's developer quit, I volunteered to take over his projects. The CEO noticed. Within a year, I was leading all technical development. That startup eventually failed, but by then I had real experience and connections. I jumped to a better company, then another. In 2019, I started building my own platform in my spare time. I called it DevStream. By 2020, I had 20,000 users. By 2021, we'd raised $3 million in funding. By 2023, we were generating $65 million in annual revenue. Last month, Forbes published a profile about me. They mentioned I'd built a company worth $500 million. That's how my family found me. 3 days later, my assistant told me there were people in the lobby claiming to be my family. I was curious after all these years, so I told her to send them up. My parents walked in looking older and worn down. My brother looked exactly like what he was, a 3-year-old who'd never grown up. They stood there staring at my corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. My mom whispered, "Is this all yours?" I told her it was my company and asked what they wanted. My dad said they'd read the article and had no idea I was doing this well. I told them they'd had no idea I was doing anything because they never bothered to find out. They tried to explain, said they'd filed a missing persons report, hired a private investigator. I asked how long they'd looked. 10 months, my dad admitted. They couldn't afford to keep paying the investigator. My mom said they wanted to reconnect, to be a family again. I asked about their financial situation. My dad, they had been injured and couldn't work. Medical bills were piling up. My brother was still unemployed, still living with them. That's when my dad finally admitted why they'd really come. They needed $100,000 for medical debt, the mortgage, and my brother's latest legal fees. I walked to my window and looked out at the city that had given me everything they couldn't. I told them I could write that check right now. It's 8 hours of my company's revenue, but I'm not going to because they didn't believe in me when it mattered, only when it benefited them. I opened my office door and told them we were done.